In this video, we'll be talking about Technology in Action, Chapter 9, Securing Your System, Protecting Your Digital Data and Devices. Now, the first thing that we need to talk about are types of theft and hackers. Alright, so we have cybercrime, which is a criminal action perpetrated primarily through the use of a computer. So, if mainly you're using a computer and you're committing a crime, that's going to be cybercrime. Now, which leads us to cybercriminals. Now, I think this one makes sense, but that is an individual who uses computers, networks, and the internet to perpetrate crime. Alright, so again, one of those things, I hope that makes sense, but in case you didn't actually have a good definition for it. Now, there are 4 common categories of complaints received of cybercrimes. So the first would be FBI-related scams, also IRS and Homeland Security. So, you get an email or whatever saying, hey, the FBI, you gotta email us back. We need all this information from you. You never give us your taxes or whatever the case is. So, it's someone pretending to be somebody else, and they're trying to get your information so that way they can, do whatever. Whether it's get money out of you because you haven't paid your taxes and you need to pay us in Bitcoin or whatever, or yada, yada, yada. Who knows? But that's the first type. The next type would be identity theft. Alright, and again, overall, I like to believe that one makes sense. We'll come back to that one in a minute. We have non-auction / non-delivery of merchandise, one of those deal too good to be true type of events. So, if you ever go on Craigslist and you see, like a jet ski for like $500 for like a 2015 or something, it's like, there's either something seriously wrong with that jet ski, or I'm never going to actually get that. And then you start contacting the person and you get email saying, oh, well, my item is in Michigan, but, so-and-so can, bring it down to you, or whatever the case is, all right? But you're not going to be getting the items at that point. So that is another common type of cyber criminals or cyber activities. Yeah, crimes. And that one is pretty rampant out there. It's one of those times that you just got to make sure that the deal is not too good to be true. If someone's offering you shipping for something on a super good deal and they expect full payment ahead of time, be very careful, especially if they're not taking credit card. You gotta be really careful about those. I always find it interesting when I find one of those on Craigslist that's too good to be true. I'll Google image search the actual image itself, and then it's like, oh, look, it's posted here and in California and in Pennsylvania. The deal's posted all over the place. That same picture is being used. Slightly different descriptions and phone numbers or whatever, but that same exact picture is being used all across the U.S. And it's like, yep, that is a scam right there. Another one is advance fee fraud. So this is a good faith gesture payment to enable them to receive a larger payment in the future. So all those wonderful emails you get that's saying, I'm the prince of whatever, and if you send me $1,000 now, I'm going to send you $10,000 in a month. All right, those types of ideas. And again, man, those emails are all over the place. I don't know if I've gotten better as life has gone on with what I'm clicking on and signing up for or whatnot, or if spam filters have gotten that much better. But I haven't seen as many of those emails in the last probably 5 years as I had 10, 15 years before that. So, although the top 4 complaints that we just talked about all relate to some type of fraud, other complaints received involved equally serious matters such as computer intrusions, hacking, child pornography, and blackmail. So, there are a lot of cyber crimes out there. It's not just these, 4 fraud types. I mean, again, in theory, if you illegally download music or whatever off the internet, that is a cyber crime because you use the internet, the computer to do it, and you didn't really have permission to do that. So, one of those things to think about. Next, identity theft. Told you to come back to this one in a minute. So this occurs when a thief steals personal information and poses as you. All right. This would be the most financially damaging cybercrime for individuals. All right. And many victims of identity theft, spend months or years trying to repair credit and eliminate fraudulent debts. All right. So this is why we need to be very careful about what type of information that you put out there. I mean, you putting information on Facebook, other people putting information on Facebook about you, all of that can lead to identity theft. So we need to be very careful about what you are doing. All right. Now your information may be stolen in person or and used online, so something to think about. So you do need to keep your purses and wallets safe to protect ATM and credit cards, especially now with a lot of credit cards and debit cards coming with the tap to pay feature. In theory, if someone knows where your wallet is, and they can come up, just bump into you with a scanner in your pocket, and they can steal your information that way. If I remember, I will put a link to a YouTube video in the description that kind of talks about this more recently, and it's kind of a fun little video just to watch. So, now there are ways to deal with that now. A lot of times, wallets come with some sort of liner in them that are so thin that they're still very flexible, but they're thick enough that they're able to keep those types of things from happening. So, getting a newer wallet might be a worthy investment for you, especially if you live in some sort of big city or something. I'm not saying this doesn't happen other places, but something to think about. You also need to make sure you protect your bank statements and credit card bills. All right. I know some people that any piece of mail they get that has their address on it and their name, they either black it out, white it out, something to protect it, or they burn it or shred it or whatever. So I'm not saying you have to go to that crazy of a time, but you don't want people getting a hold of your bank statements or your credit card bills and those types of things. So don't just throw them out in your trash can and expect, they'll make it to the dump. All right. We've all seen the TV shows where somebody going through the trash can of someone's house because, you threw it out, so that makes it public domain now, so I can go through your trash and get that. So be very careful about what you throw out is what it comes down to. You should never reveal sensitive information over the phone. When what qualifies as sensitive. Really, you should never reveal sensitive information, period, unless you absolutely have to. But just, something that you do need to think about. There are times where you have to give it out. There are times where you go, maybe this isn't the best time to be doing that. So be careful about what forms you fill out, what information you put on there. Make sure whenever you are filling things out, especially if it's in a web browser, it's on a website that you trust. So you should always check the URL, the wonderful, where your location is at the very top of the page. Because, you never know what's going to be happening there. You need to be very vigilant at ATM machines so account numbers and passcodes are secure. It used to be, and they're still out there, is credit card skimmers. So they'll put a device that as you put your credit card in, it scans your card first onto their hardware, and then it passes the card into an actual machine. And then when you type your PIN number in, they have a little camera or a secondary auxiliary keypad over the actual one so they can detect which buttons you're pressing in what order. So you have to be very careful. Especially if you look and you see something's a little funky about that ATM. Some YouTube video I watched where some guy saw, or maybe it was a news article. But anyway, some guy walked up to an ATM and saw that the card reader was 3D printed, and he's like, "This is really odd." And he got all excited. He thought he found like a card reader or a skimmer, and he has actually spent some time there trying to pull it off, and he couldn't get it off. So finally, he gave up. And he went home contacted the company in an email and said, "Hey, your ATM located at this location has a credit card, has a 3D printed, thing on top of it. It's probably a credit card skimmer. You should need to get someone out there to check on it." The company actually got back to him saying, "No, that's us. We've started 3D printing the scanners to make them harder for people to adapt to." And so it's like, well, is that a legitimate purpose that they scanned, or is it fake? So one of those things that you just need to be very careful of. So be very careful about ATM machines. Now, some other types of scans. We've got the counterfeiting credit card and debit card scans, which is kind of what we just talked about. So, basically they got to get your credit card number somehow. And man, there are lots of different ways that could happen. My father thinks he had his stolen at a car wash. So, I don't know how the car wash worked, but basically it ended up was his credit card was sitting on the counter for, I guess, the time that his car is being washed. And he thinks someone came by at that point and copied the numbers down off of his card. So that can happen. A while ago, I had my credit card stolen, and I had a charge in like Ohio or something, and I'm in Pennsylvania, and I got a call from my credit card company. "Yeah, did you just purchase gas at this location?" I was like, No, I didn't. I'm not in Ohio. I'm in Pennsylvania. So I don't know how they got my credit card number at that point, but it happens. All right. I am not a lawyer or anything like that, but someone once told me that if you have a credit card and a number gets stolen, the credit card company will fight to get their money back, where if you have a debit card that gets stolen, you have to fight to get your money back because that came right out of your bank account. So to each their own. Use credit cards, use debit cards, whatever you want, but make sure you're doing it very, very carefully, and make sure you keep an eye on all your transactions and check them once a month or more often than that, ideally. All right. So we have requesting for a change of access is another type of scam. They're going to order something and change your address so all your packages get delivered somewhere else, or whatever the case is. The system is put in place to make our lives easy when we move. All right. If you move from an apartment to a house that you just bought, you say, okay, change my address on everything for the next 3 months. So that way, when I realize, I missed changing the address on my credit card or whatever bill, it still comes to your house. It doesn't go to your old apartment complex. Well, it is very easy to do a change of address. You can either do it in person with a piece of paper and you fill it out and put it in, or you do it online I think it might cost you $1 to do it online anymore. But there's not a lot of information that they need. It's not like, you have to have the super secure password and yada, yada, yada. No, it's overall very, very simple. So, something to be aware of. Opening new credit cards. If they have enough information about you, really your social security number, your name, address, those types of things, new credit cards, you get offers every day for new credit cards, which you also should be careful about just throwing out. It's just as bad as your billing. If someone says, hey, we want to give you a credit card, and you're like, I don't want this, and you just throw it in the trash, and someone comes by and they pull the trash out and they go, hey, credit card offer, I just need to fill out some information. They'll send me one in their name. Perfect. All right. That's a bad day right there. All right. So be very careful of those free credit card offers. Make sure you shred them, burn them, whatever it is that you want to do. Medical services. All right. We all know how expensive medical services is. You go to the ER for a simple whatever, you hurt your ankle, whatever, you sprained it, you didn't know what you did, you might have broken it, you need to get it checked out. That could be a $1,000 visit without any questions anymore. And you say, my name's this, and I don't have my ID with me, or whatever the case is, but you give enough information, and all of a sudden you're getting a bill for medical, and you're like, I didn't go to the hospital the other day. So medical services is another huge one to be aware of. And buying a home, and you're probably thinking, how is buying a home a scam? Well, if I buy it in your name, and I get the mortgage in your name, and everything else is in your name, and then as soon as I buy it, I then turn around real quick and sell the house, and everything is now in your name, even though you might have been fast enough to catch it, like a week or month or whatever it is for that, all the paperwork and everything to get processed, and all of a sudden someone's already resold the house. There goes $250,000, $500,000, depending on the house you're buying. So, that is a huge, huge scam that you might be involved in when it comes to identity theft. So, all of these things are huge problems and things that you might run into. Hopefully none of this ever happens. Probably the best one that can happen to you is the counterfeiting option. Someone steals your credit card, and hopefully your bank or credit card company calls you up and goes, did you mean to do this? And you can go, no, that was not me. And then they'll cancel it, issue a new card, and everything will be fine. Alright, so hacking. So what is a hacker? And a hacker is most commonly defined as anyone who unlawfully breaks into a computer system. And that computer system may be one single computer, or it could be the entire computer network. All right. You see these people on the TV shows and whatnot, and they're just sitting there at computers typing away in the background and yada, yada, yada. That might not necessarily be the truth. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but, there is some on-site stuff that you can do that make your life a lot easier. If you can get a keystroke logger installed on a computer or whatever, if you can access the actual building and plug something into the network, there are all sorts of ways that will make hacking into a computer network a lot easier. So it doesn't mean they're going to be sitting in their basement in a dark room typing away at computers for hours. They could actually have walked into your business and whatnot to deal with things. So something to think about. Now, there are three main types, there we go, of hackers. So we have white hat hackers, which break into systems for non-malicious reasons, such as to test system security vulnerabilities or to expose undisclosed weaknesses. And they may be hired by a company that are trying to hack. All right. So basically, you go, we know we're a target. we want to make sure that we're not, we're doing everything we can to help protect us from all of our enemies and whatnot. So, how is someone going to get into our system? And you're going to be a white hat hacker, which there are, I believe, certified white hat hackers or something along those lines. There's some certification, they're licensed or whatever, but there is an actual something related to white hat hacking. But anyway, you're going to say, okay, we're going to go hire someone who's going to try to break into our systems. And I don't know if you hire a company or a specific person or whatever the case is, and you go, hey, try to, access my emails or read this or, access this server or whatever the case is. And they hire you and you go, okay, well, that is your job. Your job is to attempt to find vulnerabilities in their systems that will allow you to get access to their private and personal information. Kind of sounds like a fun job to me. I've always wanted to be that person in a store whose the whole point is to try to go into a store and steal something. So it's like, okay, CVS hires me. Let's see if you can steal, X or so much value of out of that store. And I thought that would always be kind of a fun job to go do. Be like, oh, okay, hey, Macy's wants you to come try to steal clothing from them, and how are you going to go about doing it, and all the other fun stuff. It just sounds like a fun job to me. So, if white hat hackers are good, overall they're good. I'm going to put good in quotes. All right, black hat hackers break into systems to destroy information or for illegal gain. So, white hat is good, black hat is bad. All right. So, if we want to do a quick little comparison here, white versus black is from old Western movies, where here's where white and outlaws were black hats. So, that might be where the white hat and black hat came from. So, the black hat hackers, they're going, hey, this company pissed me off, or, I really need this information to steal it, or whatever, some other company hired me to steal this information. That would be the black hat hackers. Now, there is a third category, as I mentioned earlier, not a fourth, a third, and that would be the gray hat. Now, as we all know, gray hat is kind of a combination of white and black, right? It's kind of this, in between, it's in the gray zone, all right? So, gray hat hackers do illegally break into systems to flaunt their expertise or to attempt to sell service in repairing security breaches. So, a gray hat hacker kind of wants to be a white hat hacker. They just don't know how to get in the game is kind of how I look at it. Or they're just trying to prove themselves. So, it's like, okay, hey, this company that got some weaknesses, I'm going to break into it. And then I'm going to send in, go talk to the CEO and go, hey, you've got a problem. And they go, what's that? Your system stinks, man. I got in there in 5 minutes, and here's your emails, and here's your this, You need to hire me to fix your security problems. All right, and I believe this actually happens way more than we think, or at least than I would have think. And I actually believe it works. I mean, there's no greater way to get someone to pay for your services than to say, here's proof that your system sucks, and I know how to fix all the flaws, and I will keep it operational. At the same point, if you get caught doing this, in theory, you were being a black hat hacker. You weren't destroying information per se, but, it is illegal to hack into somebody without their permission. So, one of those things that you want to think about. Now, some of the tools that hackers may use is a packet analyzer or packet sniffer. And this is a program deployed by hackers that looks at or sniffs each packet as it travels on the internet. All right. So we've talked about how computers talk out. So when your computer sends information from its out to the internet to go to Amazon or Yahoo or Google or whatever website it is sending small little packets. And those packets of information, if they are not encrypted, if you're not on an HTTPS site set up properly, then they aren't encrypted, which means anybody can read the information. So, a packet analyzer or sniffer basically says, okay, I'm going to capture all the packets I can so I can analyze them. And it takes those and it reads them and it does this and it does that. And it goes, okay, it tells me this is going to tell me that, and all those other wonderful things. And again, if it's not encrypted and they're specifically gathering packets just on you, then, they can basically see what websites you're going to and things like that. There is software out there where you can duplicate a hotspot, make one called Starbucks Wi-Fi or whatever, that people's phones and everything already automatically connect to. And as long as you don't go to a secure website, they can see the exact web pages you went and all those other crazy things. There's a lot of interesting YouTube videos out there on this. And I will again see if I can find a link to an interesting one about that. So we did already talk about HTTPS, which would be that secure option there. Another great option for helping keep packet analyzers or sniffers from working would be what's called a VPN, or a virtual private network. I think we're going to talk about this in a little bit today, so we'll come back to that one. Now, another way that hackers may get information from you is with a keylogger, which I did mention a little bit earlier. A keylogger is software or hardware that captures all of your keystrokes. So as you type and type and type, basically, this is just remembering everything that you've typed. And if it's software, it's going to create a large text file that has all of your, every button you pressed in there, and then once it's done, every day or month or week or whatever, it says okay, and it sends an email off to you saying, hey, here's the key presses. All right, now it's not mouse, doesn't necessarily going to control your mouse, but it's key presses. And with that, if you carefully look at through things, you can find out information. Maybe you can find out their passwords, their usernames, their login information, their bank account numbers, whatever it is. And this isn't like a simple oh, here's all the information, have a nice day, here's their bank account number. No, you have to kind of scroll through it and go, okay, they went to the bankofamerica.com, and then they said, okay, the next thing they typed out was this. Is that their username? And then the next thing they typed is this. Is that their password? Those types of things. So there's lots of things that a keylogger can do. A lot of information that's going to give anybody who's using it. However, it's a very complicated process to actually understand it. Now, I'm sure good hackers and whatnot, computer programmers even, who are using keyloggers are going to have a way to help decrypt that information. Maybe, automatically go through it and find any time that www. comes up and those types of things, so that way when they can go, okay, we're looking for this piece of information, they have an easier chance finding it. So we talked about a little bit software keyloggers. Now there is also hardware keyloggers. So this could be an actual keyboard or device, something built into your keyboard that is gathering that data. So instead of having to install software in the computer, it could be hardware based. It could also be a little USB pass-through device. So you plug your keyboard into this little USB, this device, and this device into the computer. So it's a little bit of a man-in-the-middle attack, where the keyboard's sending commands to the computer, this device receives them, says, okay, save this, and then it passes them off to the computer. So lots of options when it comes to those keyloggers, and especially the hardware ones. And they could be wirelessly transmitting your data. Again, they could save your data information up until a buffer is full and then just bleep it out wirelessly and then delete and then start recording again. So again, a lot of options out there. Next, we have Trojan horses. And a Trojan horse is a program that appears to be something useful or desirable, but is something malicious in the background without your knowledge. It may always be doing something malicious or wait till the right time to do something. So, just like how the Romans got in, same idea. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to download this awesome piece of software off the internet. It does X, Y, Z, P, and Q, and everything's great and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, your computer crashes one day. It's like, I wonder what happened. And it's because you installed that software, and it had this very specific time frame where after a month or whatever, it did its job. So, Trojan horses, huge problem. You gotta be very careful about them. And this could be part of another piece of software. So this could be part of like Microsoft Office that you illegally downloaded off the internet. I heard about this a long time ago. There was a Mac version of Microsoft Office on torrent websites, and thousands of people were downloading them, and they're like, "Oh, we're on Macs, we're safe, we don't get viruses." Well, someone specifically wrote a virus and embedded into that install that gave them backdoor access and things like that. It's probably one of the largest Mac hacks that I know of. So, and last not least, we have backdoor programs and rootkits. And these are programs that allow hackers to gain access to your computer and take almost complete control without your knowledge. Now, a rootkit is something that anybody that you can buy if you know unscrupulous enough people. So that way you can, even the kind of the idea is that even the uninitiated to computer hacking can use a rootkit. So something that you need to be careful about. You should always be questionable what devices you plug into your computers and those types of things. If you find a flash drive plugged into a computer somewhere, you're like, sweet, I got a free 8 gig flash drive, because no one's going to come, claim this. Who knows whose this belongs to? So you just take it home. Well, on that, there could be either bad software. It could be the death USB stick, which purposely kills your computer. by injecting like super high voltage into the USB rails, which then hooks to the CPU. So there's a lot to question on that one. At the bottom here, I do have a YouTube link that talks about packets and whatnot, so if you have any more questions on that, please watch that video first and then contact me if you still have questions. I will try to remember to put a link down to that in the description as well. So, zombies. Oh, zombie movies. Alright, back to the topic. So, a zombie is a computer that a hacker controls. Alright? So, it's, kind of a no man's land, right? It's like, okay, yes, I control the computer. Normally it works fine, but when I need it, I can access it. And zombies are often used to launch what's called denial of service attacks on other computers. We'll come back to denial of service attacks in a minute. So, you can probably see how a zombie is a very useful thing to have. So, if I control your computer, that means anything illegal that I do that I purposely use your computer for looks like you did, until they come back and find, access to my, that, oh, your computer has blah, blah, blah installed on it. So, someone was probably controlling it. But this is, kind of one of those ways that people bounce their stuff all over the world, is because they go, well, I'm going to log into this computer and log into that computer, and they have 15, 30, 40 zombies in line before they come back, actually back to them. So it's one of those things that, hackers do to help keep them separate. Now, a denial of service attack is where legitimate users are denied access to a system because a hacker is repeatedly making requests of that system through a computer that hacker has taken over as a zombie. So basically how the internet works, right? When you go to Amazon, you send it a request, it processes your request and sends information back to you. Now, there can only be so many people at one time accessing Amazon's website. If there are too many, there's too much information for that computer to process, and if they keep trying to push that, then the system may crash, and then Amazon servers will be down until someone gets there to bring them back online. So traditionally, when there's too many requests, a computer will kind of shut down for a minute, from the request, and basically just ignore it all. All right. So even if you are a legitimate user trying to access Amazon, and someone else is illegitimately trying to access it 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 times, it basically says, nope, I'm done. It kind of goes into like a safe mode where the server's still online, everything's okay. It's just basically ignoring all requests type of thing. Now, one denial of service test, let's say, you can send 10,000 packets a second or whatever to a server to try to bring it down. Well, that's all good. Now, the benefit here is a lot of servers nowadays have what they call fail to ban or something along those lines, where if the server detects too many requests at the same moment from one specific device, it basically just says, you're not allowed to access me anymore. All right. So those types of ideas, which then obviously kills the whole attack purpose. Maybe it worked for a minute or 30 seconds or whatever, but overall it's saying, no, you're not a legitimate source. I'm just going to ignore the request from you, and I'm going to only accept it from everybody else. And that could ban you for life. It could ban you for an hour, day, minute, whatever. But, it all depends on how Amazon or whatever site that is. Now, a DDoS attack, or a distributed denial of service attack, launches a DOS attack for more than one zombie at the same time. So here you can see we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 different people, kind of attacking one single computer. Now, if each of those is sending 1,000, that's 12,000 different, requests that computer is getting at any simultaneous moment. And even if one of them gets blocked, the other 11 are still sending. So, distributing it out to a whole bunch of computers, helps decrease the likelihood of you being blocked. It increases the likelihood of your denial of service attack actually working, because there are so many different people sending requests at the exact same time that, again, the computer's like, nope, I can't do it. And you and I think about a request as me clicking on a link in Amazon, right? However, you can do this from a command line. You could even say ping, or you could send get the packets that say what you're sending information to Amazon, and write a little code that does it. So you don't actually have to click on anything. You can just say run and basically go send this, send this, send this, send this, and ignore responses. You don't care about any responses. You're just trying to bring the website down. So there is a lot that can go on with a distributed denial of service attack. So that is going to be a lot worse than a single normal denial of service attack. And if you ever hear that, such and such website went down because of a DDoS attack or whatever, that's exactly what's going on. One person or groups of people or whatever it is saying, you know what, we're taking this website down for whatever purpose. So, something to think about. Now, a botnet is a large group of software running on zombie computers. Alright. Next we have a botnet, which is a large group of software running on zombie computers. And again, this is kind of like a distributed thing where, one computer doing something takes an hour, 10 computers take, doing something, they only take 6 minutes. There are good botnets and there are bad botnets. So some common tasks that might be executed by botnets include DDoS attacks, as we just talked about, emailing spam out to millions of internet users, generating fake internet traffic on third-party websites for financial gain, replacing banner ads in your web browser specifically targeted at you, and pop-up ads designed to get you to pay for the removal of the botnet through a phony anti-spyware package. So those are just some examples of botnets, of the nefarious ones at least. When it comes to hacking, there are basically two options that you have for being hacked or being the hacker. You have direct access, so this involves sitting at the computer, and this is overall very unlikely for your home environment. Or at least I would hope it's unlikely that you don't know who you don't realize that someone was in your house at your computer. All right. However, this also means you should really have passwords on your computer. All right. And there are other things that you should do. Good hackers, even a password on Windows isn't going to stop them. All right. But a password will definitely slow them down. So something to think about. But anyway, as I said, this is probably overall unlikely. Now, next we have the indirect access. So they're gaining access remotely. And one of the things they might use to do that is called an exploit kit. And this is software programs that run on servers that are searching for vulnerabilities. And these vulnerabilities could be things that are unpatched known security flaws. And that is one of the reasons why it is very, very important to keep your computer and your security up to date. Right? There are security research out there constantly trying to hack into Windows, and they're going, well, what about this? Can I do it that way? How does this work? What about that? And if you don't keep your computer up to date, then this is something that hackers can use against you, especially since often these are publicly known. Let's take Google, for example. When they go and find exploits and things, because they are constantly looking, I believe they give companies only like 90 days to patch it before they publicly release the exploit into the world. Right? And this is meant to encourage companies to actually patch things in a timely fashion instead of going, hey, here's the problem with your system, fix it. And 6, 8, 12 months go by and the company never fixed it. Well, if Google says, hey, here's this information about your network that's bad, we're going to tell the world about it in 3 months, fix it by then, the company is much more likely to attempt to fix it. So, something to think about. But anyway, that's why it's important to keep your system up to date. There may be unknown by the masses security flaw. All right, so something happens, there's some flaw in whatever system, but no one has publicly made it aware yet. That could be a way into your computer. You could click on the wrong link on a website. All right. That may download this or do this pop-up or whatever those things are. Ad blockers are a wonderful thing. All right, in my mind at least, they help keep you from clicking on nefarious websites. Because if an ad is most likely where that nefarious website's going to be, they're going to have a little ad running that's like, you could win, $10,000. Just click here, and you click there, and it takes you to some website that's like, hey, download this plugin, yada yada yada, and then all of a sudden your computer crashes, or you've been hacked basically. Where ad blockers, in theory, won't let you see those, or even if you click on them, they won't take you to the website type of thing. Now, ad blockers at the same point do hurt companies. If you say, okay, I'm going to go to yahoo.com or whatever, and you have ad blockers, now Yahoo's not getting the revenue from you using their free service. So there is a little bit of a give and take here. And to each their own. If you love your ad blockers, great. If you hate the idea of ad blockers, great. It's your own choice. You get to pick it, which is a wonderful thing here. Next, we have logical ports, which are virtual, not physical communication paths. All right, And this is how your computer is allowed to organize requests for information. So if we look at the little picture of the house that we have up here with the little thief, all right, we have all the different ports or entries into this house. So you have 4 different windows, 2 on the first, or 3 on the first floor, 1 on the second floor, and we have the door. All right. So HTTP, which is how the Hypertext Transfer Protocol is how we access the internet overall, works normally on port 80. All right. And basically, we've taken the firewall, the magical entrance to the computer world, and we have 1,000 or 10,000 different ports. I don't know how many there are. Probably closer to 10,000 than 1,000. And then basically, when you request information, you go to one specific, call it doorway, on that wall, and it says, "Hey, I'm requesting this information," and it goes, "Okay, you're in the right format. All right, you're allowed through." Or you could go to a port and you go, "Hey, I'm requesting information." And it goes, "No, we're not requesting any information on that port," type of thing, you know. So it's very important to make sure you have logical ports and set up properly. Now, even at your house, you have logical ports on your firewall, on your router. And depending on what you're trying to do at your house, you may have to open or close things depending on the software you're using. So if you have an email server running at your house and you want to be able to access it remotely, you need to open up port 25. Now, if you don't have an email server opening, there's no reason to have port 25 open. All right. So unless you're, being very super security conscious and you want to keep all your emails on your own personal hardware and your own personal location, you don't really have a need to open up port 25 for email. Telnet is port 23. There's 21 is SSH, I believe. So depending on what you're doing, you might need to open specific ports up. A long time ago, I was running a small website for the youth group at my church, at my parents' house, and so I had to have port 80 open, which is probably not the best plan of action in my life ever, but I don't think we ever got hacked. I don't think there's any huge problem with that. So yeah, it's just one of those things that you need to think about when you are doing. So hopefully you don't ever have a need to open up any virtual ports or logical ports on your router to allow people access to your network, but there are times and cases where that might actually need to happen. So to each their own. So a virus, a computer virus that is a program that attaches to a computer program to spread to other computers. All right. The main purpose of this is to replicate itself and copy its code into as many other host files as possible. All right. So it's going, "Hey, I'm a virus. I need to get on your computer." Once it's on your computer, its whole job is to replicate. It's trying to go, "Okay, can I copy onto this file? No. How about that file? Oh, I can get onto that one. What about this? What about that?" And it keeps going and going and going. And not only is it going onto your computer, it's also trying to get onto other computers on your network. All right. It's kind of like one of those email chains where you didn't actually send the email out, but everyone, all your friends in your contact list got an email from you, and if they clicked on the link or whatever, it sent it out to all their contacts, and then all their contacts, and then all their contacts. All right. Its goal is to spread to as many people as possible. All right. The infected file needs to be ran for it to spread. Now, this is always true. If a computer program wants to do anything, you have to actually tell it to run. Now, you telling it to run could be that it made it to the startup folder on your computer, so every time you start Windows, this program runs. Or it could be that it makes a fake icon on your desktop that looks like Microsoft Word, and it says Microsoft Word, but when you click on that, first it runs the malicious script, and then it opens Word. So again, you don't know that you're actually doing anything. But the code itself does actually need to be run. But again, running isn't necessarily you clicking on it. It could be when any other program, a certain program opens, it runs, or when you go to a certain website, it will run because there's code there, or when you're in Microsoft Word and you're typing something specific, it'll run. There are all sorts of ways for them to hide the malicious intent behind the virus. So it's very hard overall to be super on top of it. Now, there is a secondary objectives, and these range from displaying annoying messages on the computer screen to destroying files or the contents of an entire hard drive, or encrypting it. All right. So viruses can be destructive if the creator of it wants it to be. And that also could be the auxiliary function. And unluckily, it only takes running a virus once for it to get onto your computer. And once you run it once, it could embed itself in very specific locations so that it is always running. All right. So it's something we do need to be very careful of. Now, smartphones, tablets, basically any computer can be infected. Now, overall, I don't know of any viruses that are targeted at smartphones and tablets. All right. However, there's a big however here. They are not immune. All right. Most viruses nowadays are on Windows computers, and there's two main reasons for that. One, the vast majority of computing devices out there are Windows, is really what it comes down to. When it comes to computer OS, who's running what type of operating system, Windows is the big winner, whether it's for home use or business. And that's the other key there. Businesses, probably the people who they want to hack the most, are running Windows. All right, there's very few businesses that I know of, besides my dentist, that is using all Macs at their company. All right, so yeah, Windows is kind of the big go-to. It has the highest likelihood of being the most widespread option out there when it comes to viruses. So that's why Windows is the best. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there was someone who wrote one for Mac with an illegal version of Microsoft Office. And the other thing there is, back then, Macs, I don't know if they had virus software. All right, so something to think about. Now, virus software hopefully will keep these types of things from happening from you as long as you keep it up to date. All right, so something to think about. Now, viruses spread in multiple ways. So this could be from downloading a file from your email. You got a link from your friend, like, hey, this is the coolest software ever, run it. So you're like, okay, cool, you download it and whatnot, and then all of a sudden, bam, you now have a virus on it. The preview pane in your email could also cause it. It could be in a picture from illegal file sharing, an email from your contacts with an infected file, a link on a website, software download, plugin, Microsoft Word document, basically any type of computer document, software, email, text, whatever, could contain a virus. So you need to be very, very careful about that. Now, possible proof of virus on your computer. So an existing program icons or files suddenly disappear. So, you've downloaded something and all of a sudden you're like, where'd everything go on my computer? You start your browser and it takes you home to a page that you didn't set or has new toolbars installed on it. Now, you do have to be kind of careful here because depending on what you recently installed, sometimes that will include toolbars. If you're one of those people that install a software, you just click yes, 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 install, yes, yes, okay, yes, Sometimes some of those softwares come with extra software. It's basically like Firefox saying, hey, we want to be installed on your computer, so we're going to be part of this other installer. So that way you get Firefox installed or some toolbar or things like that. So it may not necessarily be a virus, especially with home pages and toolbars, but something that you do need to be aware of. You could get odd messages, pop-ups, or images displayed on the screen, or strange music or sounds plays. Data files could become corrupt. Programs stop working properly. Your system shuts down unexpectedly. So there are lots and lots of things that viruses can do to your computer. And they can also play coy and just, sit in the pond and do nothing. They can just be like, okay, we're just going to hang around, whatever. Talk more about that on the next slide. So there's a lot of things that viruses can do. What will they do? Who knows? All right. In theory, the virus running in the background that you don't even know there is actually the worst type of virus, because that can be collecting passwords and this and that, and copying all your keystrokes and sending all the information they want to whoever it is that controls it, and then they can ruin your life with all that information, and you'll never even know that they were on your computer. So, something to be aware of. Now, types of computer viruses. So, we have boot sector viruses, which replicate themselves onto a hard drive's MBR, or a master boot record. And this executes whenever the computer boots. Alright, so probably one of the worst types, because this is one of the things that's first ran on your computer type of thing. So it's can be very hard to get rid of this type of virus. This is often going to be transmitted via USB drives, so not something that you're going to get in email. Normally it's going to be from a bad flash drive on the computer. A logic bomb is a virus that, when certain logical conditions are met, such as opening a file or starting a program a certain number of times, so that is when that will happen. So again, any of those things that we talked about on the previous page is what could happen from these things. But a logic bomb has some logic behind it. It's like, we're not going to just always operate. We're going to operate at specific times. Like, oh, anytime your web browser is open, because we want to try to get your usernames and passwords. So think of it like that. We talked earlier, I believe, this semester in then the little password video that I put up about using password managers to store your usernames and passwords. And that is both a great and horrific thing. So it is both great because obviously it makes your life easier to remember all your passwords. However, if anyone has access to your computer, they now kind of have access to all of your passwords. Maybe not specifically the username and the actual password itself, but they can access the websites and things like that. Now, the one little bit of security you do get from a password manager is that if you have a password manager installed, and all you're doing is clicking on the username, like you go to a website and it goes, which user do you want to log in with? And you click on whichever one it is. A keylogger will not then be able to get your passwords. They may get your master password, but they may not get individual passwords. So that is one of those things that you do need to be very, thoughtful of. So a lot of give and take going on there. So along with logic bombs, we do have time bombs, which is a virus that is triggered by the passage of time or on a certain date. Some hacker says we're going to take down this website on July 4th, and every, basically they just start sending viruses out that are ready to execute at July 4th. So, time bomb. We have worms, which work independently of host file execution, are much more active in spreading themselves. So worms try and try and try to spread themselves. And they spread on their own with no human interaction needed. So they don't necessarily need you to be opening files and things like that. They just kind of keep working their way through the system and keep putting themselves all over the place. You have script and macro viruses, which is a series of commands that are executed without one's knowledge. Alright, a script is a mini program that may be executed just by visiting a website. This was a big issue with Java, which is why Java has kind of gone the wayside for the most part, and a lot of web browsers are now blocking Java. Because you'd go to a website and you'd be like, hey, run this JavaScript, and the web browser would be like, okay, and whatever that JavaScript was. But it would run, and then all of a sudden, now you got a virus on your computer. So that's why Java kind of has gone away. Macro viruses are attached to files that can run macros. Microsoft Office is a nice example of this. So you can write macros for like Excel. So if you're always going to be doing some crazy data crunching, you don't want to write a little formula in all the cells, you can write a little macro, which is just a normal program, and have a button in Excel that says, okay, run my comparisons. So, it automatically will go grab the updated information from other files and bring them into one, and then do comparison A to B to C and highlight and whatever else that you want it to do. And it's part of Microsoft Office. All right. And this is why oftentimes that when you download a Word file from the internet, or your Outlook or whatever, it says, enable content. There's that little stupid button at the top that you have to press to allow you to save or edit or whatever. And that's one of Microsoft's ways to help protect you from random files that you download having macros run on them. So something to use. Traditionally, I don't know if I said this, macros are used for repetitive tasks. So. Next, we have email viruses, which use the address book in the victim's email system to distribute themselves. So we kind of hit this up already, but basically, you get an email from your friend, and it says, hey, check out this thing, yada, yada, yada. You click the link, and then all of a sudden, you've now sent that email out to your entire contact book. And then all your friends do it, and then that sends it to all their contacts, and it just repeats down and down and down the line. And it could be as simple as just sending out a little, blurb, trying to get you to go to their website or whatever to increase ad revenue. Or that could be self-spreading that way, but also download something onto your computer. So, kind of nasty. Now this last one is, man, the piece de resistance, if I may say so. Whatever hacker came up with this is both brilliant and an absolute jerk all at the same time. So we have encryption viruses, and this is probably the biggest one right now, and it's ransomware, basically. So when encryption or ransomware viruses infect a computer, they run a program that searches for types of data files, compresses them, and encrypts them. You then receive a message that asks you to send a payment to your account if you want to receive the program to decrypt your files. All right. So, it goes through and it goes any Word, PDF, PowerPoint, video, audio file, yada, yada, yada. We're going to encrypt that so that way you can't access it anymore. And the worst part about these mostly is basically they go, okay, we're going to encrypt it here, and then we're going to go search all your network drives and encrypt it there. We're going to go search everywhere we have access to and encrypt it and encrypt it and encrypt it. So, yeah, you are really boned with this type of virus. For the most part, the only way to deal with this is to pay. Like, if you want your data back, you're basically having to pay. Like, that's the only option. So, really kind of a nasty, nasty virus. And depending on how important stuff is to you, there's nothing that you can do but to pay. And this is one of those reasons why backups are so important. And the other big issue here is, depending on what type of backup you're using, your backup's also going to get encrypted. This is one of those reasons why you need an offline backup. You need to have a way to unplug your backup from the computer so that even if something happens to your computer, that hard drive that you have is protected. It's not going to get the virus. It's not going to get encrypted automatically. So, offline backups are extremely important for this type of thing. And I will tell you, man, companies and states and, there have been a lot of people who have had a lot of information encrypted and had to pay to get the information back. Now, this is the type of thing that, depending on who you are, the FBI will be getting involved. So, there is that, which I don't know if is truly a good thing, but, there's a lot of research going into this. And most of these do have a time frame. So it's like, you have 3 days to send us, $2,000 for us to decrypt your data, or whatever the magic price is. And I said there are a lot of school districts and counties and things like that basically their only option is to pay because they truly don't have a good backup system. Companies that are doing rolling backups are actually probably the best ones off, where they back up day one to hard drive A, and then they unplug it. And the next day they plug in hard drive B, and then the next day they plug in hard drive C or D. And either they have weekly, 7 different backups that they do to different locations that again are offline. So once they back up, they die, type of thing. So there's backup solutions. Having a beautiful NAS RAID system is not going to protect you from this type of problem. So something you really want to be careful about. Now, viruses are classified into overall 3 different methods to avoid detection. We have polymorphic viruses, and this changes its code to avoid detection. Most polymorphic viruses infect a particular type of file. So they're going to go for a Word or an exe or a BAT or whatever type of file it is. And it's going to constantly be updating and changing itself, so to help it avoid detection. Next, we've got multipartite viruses, and this is designed to infect multiple file types in an effort to fool the antivirus software that it is looking for it. So again, it's like, oh, I'm infecting this virus and that virus and yada yada yada. So all these different viruses. So hopefully the antivirus software can't find me. All right. And lastly, we have stealth viruses, and these temporarily erase their code from the files where they reside and hide in the active memory of the computer. So, basically they're going to get put into RAM. Now, fortunately for us, current antivirus software does scan memory as well as the hard drive, so they are looking in both locations. So stealth viruses have gotten, in theory, harder to keep stealth, because if our antivirus is checking our RAM as well as our hard drive, we should be finding those types of things. So, to each their own. Now, Online annoyances. This leads us to malware. So malware is software that has a malicious intent. It's also known as grayware. Most malware consists of intrusive, annoying, and objectionable online programs. So not going to make you go nuts or anything, but it is going to be very annoying. All right. So yeah. All right. Next we have adware, which displays unsponsored advertisements. Pop-up blockers do keep this to a minimum nowadays, and overall this is considered legitimate. All right, this is an acceptable way to do things, right? Adware, it's adware. You know, they're trying to show you ads. You've gone to the website, you have accepted ads on said website. Now, man, I remember the days where you click on something and like 20 different pop-ups would pop up. You're like, oh man, you gotta be freaking kidding me. So pop-up blockers have definitely started to help this out, and that is something that is built into most modern web browsers to keep that from happening. It's not something that you have to add on like we had to do way back in the days. Then we have spyware, which is an unwanted program that downloads with other software from the internet and runs in the background. So this does transmit information about you, and many spyware programs use tracking cookies. We're going to talk about cookies on the next page. So keystroke loggers be one of those. You may need multiple anti-spyware software to detect all types of spyware. You know, there's a lot of options out there when it comes to antivirus and anti-adware and malware and things like that. So make sure you find one that you are happy with. Windows does come with Windows Defender for viruses. I'm not sure if that does malware and adware and spyware as well, but Windows does come with a virus software built into it, but you might need or want to download something else as well. Now, spam is unwanted or junk email. All right, and as I talked about earlier, I don't know if spam blockers have gotten better or I've just gotten smarter about what I'm clicking on, but I don't feel like I'm getting as much spam as I used to. Or if the people who are doing the spam, the spam schemes have changed their tactics and gone to something else, so they're just not doing as much spamming anymore. I don't know. To help minimize spam, a spam filter is a great option in your email. So, however, spam filters overall do need to be trained. So you do need to tell it, hey, this is spam. So when you see something that gets to your actual inbox, don't just say, oh, spam, and delete it. No, mark it as actual spam. And that will help your spam filter learn what is and what isn't spam. It's also important to go into your spam folder every once in a while to make sure that there's nothing important in there, especially from your faculty. All right. Or other students. In the group projects that you guys just completed, I had one student who said they sent an email to their group and their copy of it, because you email yourself when you do that, went into their spam folder, which I found to be very interesting. So you do need to check your spam filter at least weekly to make sure there's nothing important in there. So something to think about. There is an option for unsubscribing at the bottom of most spam emails, or maybe not spam emails, but most emails that you may or may not actually want. Let's say you said, okay, I created an account on Home Depot's website so I could place an order, and all of a sudden now I'm getting all emails once a day from them saying, hey, check out this, you should order that, yada, yada, yada. And you're tired of receiving those emails. At the very bottom of most legitimate company web pages, there is a button that says unsubscribe, and that will keep you from getting all of the wonderful emails from them in theory. There's conspiracy theorists that are saying, hey, we don't actually unsubscribe you when you do that. They just send your information to other websites and then take them off their list. So yes, you got unsubscribed from Home Depot, but Home Depot then sent you to other websites. I don't believe that's the case, especially with large companies like Home Depot or Target or Amazon or those types of things. However, smaller companies out there could be the case, but I don't actually believe that. Cookies! Everybody loves cookies, right? Well, we have cookies when it comes to web browsing, or web cookies. And these are small text files that some websites automatically store on your hard drive when you visit them. And these can be used for companies can use this information to determine the traffic flowing through the website and the effectiveness of their marketing strategy. Add a page B shows on Amazon item you just looked at. So, you were on Amazon, and then you said, okay, and you're now on Facebook, and all of a sudden that same item you're looking at is now on Facebook as an ad. It's like, what? How did Facebook know that? What? All right. Cookies do not go through your hard drive and search for personal information, though. It is all based on your web browsing history. And the main concern with cookies is that advertisers use this information to indiscriminately, thus invading your privacy. In theory, cookies are fixed on, if you have Amazon, the cookie Amazon creates, Facebook cannot read. Unless Facebook has something embedded on it about Amazon, and then it can read the Amazon cookies. There's a YouTube video here, and I'll try to remember to put that link in the description. That talks more about cookies. Overall, cookies pose no security threat because it is virtually impossible to hide a virus or malicious software program in a cookie, and that is partially because they are limited to like 4 megabytes or something. So they're very small, and again, only like a specific web page in theory can open a cookie. So something to think about. Now, how do people get your private and personal information? And the answer to that is social engineering. This is any technique using social skills to generate human interaction with the purpose of luring individuals to reveal sensitive information. Now, it's really funny. I'm actually watching a show called Person of Interest right now, and it was talking about, with social media nowadays, it's a lot easier to get all this personal information from people. And, the guy was like, oh yeah, I created that for the purpose of, getting personal information on people so they would freely give it to us. So we wouldn't have to try to sneak our, wouldn't have to work as hard to get that information from them. And a lot of people are just willing just to give all this information about themselves so that way their friends and everything like that know what's going on in their lives. You go on Facebook, it's like, oh, I got a new dog, his name is Rex, or whatever. It's like, well, Rex may now be their password to something. So, you really have to be careful about what information that you give out on the interweb or on your phone. Social engineering, it's, it used to be, you had to talk to somebody, get to know them, to try to pull this information about what their first dog's name was, or where they lived as a kid, or what their address was, or what their phone number is, or how old they are, what their birthday, favorite color, those types of things. Now you just go on Facebook and half that information is just freely given out by people, which I find absolutely crazy. So, on that note, if you have your birthday on Facebook, make sure that it is not actually posted to the World Wide Web. That is a really bad idea. So, be very careful about that. I know, it's nice getting all those wonderful Facebook messages from people saying, happy birthday, because Facebook told them it was your birthday, but that's just a bad idea in the long run. So, we also then have pretexting, which involves creating a scenario that sounds legitimate. You get a phone call from your bank talking about something, or the IRS calls you and says, you didn't pay your taxes, you owe us X amount of money, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, whatever is going on. So, that would be what pretexting is. Phishing, just like you think about it, actual phishing, it lures internet users to reveal personal information. So, you're trying to get them to take the bait and go, okay, what are you going to tell me? How can I use that? What's going on? Next, you have farming. I like how we have PH for phishing, PH for farming. Farming occurs when malicious code is planted on your computer and it is gathering information, just like you would, you go farming and you're gathering your crops. All right. Some guidelines to help you avoid some such schemes. Never reply directly to any email asking for personal information. All right. Don't click on links in your email, especially ones that you don't trust. There's always going to be, emails going around trying to get information out of you. Be very careful with what you click, especially for emails that, from your coworkers or look like your coworkers. All right. For a while, someone was trying to be the president of HCC, and they were sending an email saying, do you have time to talk? Yada, yada, yada. And, they were trying to see who was going to respond and what they could get out of them. Same thing happens at lower levels, whether it's division heads or directors or whatever it is. People are going to impersonate them and try to get you, their workers, to respond and help them, buy. Oh yeah, I need you to buy me an Amazon car. I can't do it right this minute. So, be very careful. use phishing filters. There are filters out there that will help keep phishing activities from happening. So be careful with that. Use internet security software that is constantly being updated. So again, keep things up to date and whatnot. And again, I have another YouTube video here that helps explain some of these topics a little bit better. Now, the last topic there is scareware, and this is a type of malware that downloads on your computer and it tries to convince you that your computer is infected with a virus or other type of malware. You're then directed to a website where you can buy fake removal or antivirus tools that provide little or no actual value. And this is qualified as a social engineering technique because it uses people's fears of computer viruses to convince them to part with their money. So basically, your little pop-up pops up that says, "Hey, there's a virus on your computer. Contact this, contact this person or website or whatever to help, get rid of it." And most of the time, those are bad news. There's lots of people on YouTube who will actually screw with the people who do these types of things. So they record themselves and they set up a whole virtual computer on a separate network and yada yada yada. And they've done everything they can possibly to protect their computers. And they put out some tempting information for the people who are going to remote desktop onto their computer to help them fix the virus software. And they might have a file called, bank account numbers or something like that. And then the hackers, copy that file into their computer because, if they remote desktop in, they can see everything. And they run it, and then installs this other person's software, which then allows, or probably some sort of rootkit, which then allows them to access that person's computer. So kind of a crazy situation there. But anyway, if you're really bored, you can go watch some of them, and some of them are freaking hilarious. Some of them just waste the people's time like there's no tomorrow. There's one guy who pretends he's an old grandma and whatnot, and I don't know what Amazon is. But it can be kind of funny. But man, it's also huge hole for your time. So be very careful of that. So, how do we restrict access to digital assets? All right, and firewalls. These are software programs or hardware devices to protect computers from hackers. You can have both software and hardware firewalls at the exact same time. And most home routers that we've talked about do have a small firewall built onto them. They're not the best type of firewall out there. However, for the average home user, they are enough between that and what Windows has built into it. And both Mac and Windows do include firewalls in them. Some antivirus protection is included in some of the firewall stuff, like Norton or Trend Micro, so something else to think about. And this is overall based on packet filtering, where again, we're filtering out packets into logical ports. So if we go back to that house picture, where, HTTP request is set to port 23, it's going, nope, that's not the right type of request, and it ignores it, where it says, oh, HTTP request is sent to port 80, alright, that one's allowed through. And as long as you have your firewall set up for that, everything is fine. So, and last but not least, we have network address translation. And this is actually how your router makes sure, or one of the ways, that your router makes sure that the request that you sent out actually comes back to your computer, not to your wife's or your husband's or your son's or whatever computer that is. And basically, the whole point of this is to keep your internal IP address safe. Alright, now, remember, on the LAN, we have IP addresses. Traditionally, at your house, it's either going to be 192.168.0 or 1 dot something, or 10.0.0. something. At least traditionally, that's where we are at. So, overall, nice little system there. But basically what it does is it says, okay, this request from 10.0.0.10 is coming in. We're going to send that out on the WAN port, colon 36 or whatever port it is. And it basically picks a random port. So that way when the requests from Amazon come back to port 36, your computer goes, oh, port 36 is this IP address internally, and it then redirects that information. So that is how your router is able to direct stuff to the right way. So, and that is called NAT, or network address translation. So, preventing virus infection. So first is antivirus software. All right. This is obviously specifically designed to detect viruses and protect your computer from files, computer and files from harm. All right. As I mentioned earlier, Windows has Windows Defender built right into it nowadays. Windows did not used to come with good antivirus. So far, I've had pretty good. So far I'm happy with it. Windows Defender is really what it comes down to. There are other options out there. You have Symantec, Trend Micro, Avast. These are some of the highly rated antivirus software out there. McAfee is another one that used to be big. All sorts of things like that. There's a lot of antivirus software out there, options out there, and you have to pick which one that you want. All right. Remember, just because your computer's not Windows doesn't mean it can't get viruses. And there is antiviruses for Apple, I assume for Apple devices. I don't actually have Apple devices, so I don't know. But I know the Android Play Store, there is like the Avast app for the Android phone to help make sure your phone doesn't get a virus. So there are options out there like that. Now, every virus has a signature, and this is a portion of the virus code that's unique to that particular computer virus. And this is one of the ways that the virus software works. It's looking for these unique snippets of code and programs and things like that, and what's going on in your computer and all other fun stuff. So your program is actually doing a lot in the background to make sure that you are protected from other crazy things going on. Which leads us to quarantining. So once your computer finds what it believes is a virus, it quarantines it, or places a virus in a secure area so it won't spread to other files. So basically it's saying, this software can't run, I think this is a virus, and it normally goes, hey, I stopped this virus from infecting your computer, and you're like, that's not a virus, that's my fun little game that makes it look like you're destroying your computer screen. I mean, I understand why you think it's a virus, but that's not a virus. So you can get things out of quarantine. So that is something to keep in mind. You do need to figure out where quarantine is on your specific antivirus software, which is not always the easiest thing to do. All right. So depending on the antivirus software you use, it might be kind of a confusing way to go about things. And I don't know if that's to protect the end users who don't know what they're actually doing, but they're like, no, I need that to run. That's good software. And even though it's not actually good software. So I don't know if that's the whole purpose behind that or what, but just something to think about there. So we have quarantining, and then we also have inoculation, which records key attributes about your computer files and keeps stats in secure places. So we're trying to, again, make sure we can keep our files active even if a virus does get on our computer. Now, one of the ways that most viruses are going to get onto your computer is what's called drive-by download. And this is where many viruses exploit weaknesses in the operating system. So it's not anything specific that you did overall, but it's the Windows that's the problem, or Apple, or iOS, or Mac, or Android, or whatever it is. It's the operating system how most viruses are going to get onto your computer. And this affects almost 1 in 1,000 web pages, or 0.1%. So a lot of web pages out there have a drive-by download virus somehow working on them. So something to think about. And the best way to combat these threats is to make sure your OS is up to date and contains the latest security patches. Again, update your computers. That is the best thing you can do to protect your computer from getting infected. Now, when it comes to passwords, you should have strong passwords, which means they need at least 8 characters and use the upper, lowercase, numeric, and symbol characters. Now, depending on what you're using, 8 characters might not be enough. All right. I actually had a website that I signed up for the other day that was 14 characters. It's like, I am never going to remember this password. I've never had to create a password that was 14 characters long. I was like, whoa, that one's big. So that one is a very one-off password for me that I probably will forget and be resetting constantly if I try to go to that website. So right now it's all working fine, so I'm not super worried about it, but when I need to access it, it'll probably just get reset if it's not saved in my password manager. So let's say if you're using 8 characters and you have 72 different options per character because you've got digits, you've got capital letters, you've got lowercase letters, you've got symbols, the world is kind of your oyster. that is 72 to the 8th power, or 7.22 times 10 to the 14th power. Now, if you can attempt 1,000 passwords per second, it would take you 22,000 years to brute force every combination of that password. So that is a very, very long time. So it is very important to have a good, strong password. Now, it's not actually that many different combinations, because most people are using words and numeric numbers in a row and things like that. I do have a whole other video on password security and things like that you should all have watched already. Now, this does lead us to biometric authentication devices. All right, this is a thing. All right, and most cell phones nowadays have fingerprint scanners on them. Some are starting to use face print scanners, those types of things, voice authentication. So if we're using some sort of biometric or bio or something specific to you, so this is a device that reads a unique personal characteristic such as a fingerprint, an iris pattern in your eye, and converts it into a digital code. And because no two will have the same biometric characteristics, the devices can provide a high level of security to some extent, right? In theory, if you're using your fingerprint, every time you touch something, you are leaving your password then behind, all right? And people can fake that. There was a whole Mythbusters episode about, breaking into, fingerprint scanners and things like that. People have supposedly fooled Apple Face ID with just like a picture of the person. So you do need to be kind of careful about this. In theory, at least, the best password is a combination of both biometric and actual password. Because even if someone steals your fingerprint, they don't know the actual password. If someone steals your password, they don't have your fingerprint. So it's kind of a two-factor authentication, which I do highly suggest that you guys set up on your super secure accounts, because without that, it's bad news bears. So two-factor authentication basically involves 2 steps for you to log on to your new device. Google supports it. A lot of companies are starting to support dual-factor authentication. And what this allows is you to say, okay, before I can log on to my Google, I have to type my password in, and then I have to, on my phone, say, yes, that is me. All right. Now, one thing people do suggest one thing I suggest is that you don't use your cell phone, that actual phone number, as your second authentication, because people can convince your phone company that they are you and that your phone broke and you need a new SIM card, or you lost your phone, so you need a new SIM card, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, okay, here you go, and we'll set it all up, and we'll get your new phone and whatnot. And now they have your phone, so now they have the second authentication factor, where if you're using an app on your phone for that second authentication, it's much harder for them to steal. So just one of those things that you need to think about. So next, anonymous web surfing. All right. Now, these are not end-all perfect devices. All right. These are helpful steps. All right. So when it comes to privacy tools, these are tools that are connected with web browsers. So these include private browsing in private and incognito mode. All right. These are all different versions of the same thing depending on what web browser you're using. All right. And basically what this does is it doesn't save any of your browser history, and all of your temporary internet files, like your cookies and things like that, get deleted either when you leave that web page or when you close out of the incognito window. So in theory, very little is left behind on the computer itself. However, this does not, as I said, stop it from recording information. And by that I mean, your information is still being sent. You still said, oh, let me go to this website. That information still has to be sent from your computer out to some other website. So somewhere along the line, information is being transmitted. Now, at your home, that means your ISP may be able to see it. If you're at work and you're like, oh, I'm going to keep my boss from knowing what I'm doing because I am in incognito mode on Chrome. No, that is not going to keep that from happening, because your work company has, all the steps in the middle, from your computer goes to a switch, which goes to a router, which goes to another router, which goes to a different route, the external WAN, and they may be checking all of your information in all of those steps and actually recording and stuff. So, just because you're in incognito mode doesn't mean that your boss won't know that you went to, Facebook or esports or whatever it was while you were at work. So you do need to be very careful. As I said, this keeps stuff from being saved on your local computer. Now, again, at home, basically that means there's nothing no trace left other than what your ISP might have recorded. So this is a good option, especially if you're shopping for like Christmas presents or presents for your wife and they don't know about it and you don't want them to find out because they went on your Facebook and all of a sudden there's an ad for a diamond ring or whatever it is that you were purchasing. So that is a good option there. Another great option is a VPN, or a virtual private network. Told you we're going to come back to that one. And these are, in theory, secure networks that are established using public internet infrastructures. And overall, how they work is, traditionally when I go to Amazon.com, it goes from my local computer to my ISP to Amazon's web server, and all the steps in between. If I have a VPN set up, it goes from my computer via a secure connection to a server located somewhere else via the internet. But remember, this is encrypted, so between me and their server out there, there is, in theory, no way for anyone to read that information. And then from their server, it then goes out to Amazon. So it kind of encrypts all of your data from point A to point B. And this, in theory, protects you from prying eyes. In theory, if I'm at work, theory at least, all they see is me going to the server in Chicago or whatever it is. Now, depending on the network and computers and things like that, and what software they have installed, they might still be able to see my web history. But in theory, at least, they can't. All right. This is not a perfect solution either. There are flaws with this as well. So, things to think about again. And, you can have multiple hops and things like that. And VPNs are not just, they are mainly there to secure your information. It's to keep prying eyes. But they also can do things like allow you to watch Netflix in another country, or, things like that, where it allows you to, get something because that is geolocation locked. Now, some providers like Netflix try to detect this, and supposedly they can. And they'll be like, disable your VPN to, use Netflix type of thing. So something that you do need to think about using when you're doing that type of thing. So when it comes to protecting your personal information, you should, as we talked about earlier, reveal as little information as possible. On things like Facebook, you should change your privacy settings because you never know who's going to get on there. There's this very fine line there in the world of Facebook when it comes to privacy settings, because you want it open enough that people can find you who need to find you, but you want it secure enough that not just any old Joe Schmo can come find you. So, a little bit of information. Information that Identity Thieves craves, as we can see by a little picture down here. Social Security number is probably their number one. Full date of birth, your phone number, and your street address. All right. This is actually also one of those reasons why you shouldn't have your last name on your mailbox, because now anyone who drives by your house know that, at 4549 Redwood Street, Betts lives there. Okay, and I can now use that information for mailings or for trying to get information from them. That's a good first step. Other sensitive information that you shouldn't give out: your full legal name, email addresses, zip code, gender, school, workplace, those types of things. And now think about it. How much of this do you have on Facebook? Probably don't have your social security number on Facebook. Full date of birth, you probably do. Phone number, there's a good chance you have one linked with Facebook. That may or may not be public, but it is linked. Your street address, again, maybe you don't have the exact street address, but you have a rough, I live at, in Hagerstown or West Virginia, or Martinsburg or Chambersburg or whatever it is. Your full legal name may or may not be on Facebook, including your maiden name. That might be something that you have on Facebook as well for those ladies out there who are married. Email address, again, you probably have one linked with Facebook that, again, may or may not be noticeable. Zip code, again, based on your address or what town you live in, people can probably come up with that. Gender, obviously, is pretty obvious on Facebook because they're pictures of yourself. And school or workplaces are things that people like to put on Facebook because then when their class of 2010 are trying to find them, they can go, Chambersburg High 2010, and then, all these people went to school with me. Oh yeah, I forgot about so-and-so. All right. So all that information is probably out there, especially on websites like LinkedIn, where you were probably using that for getting a job. Your workplace is probably on there, when you started, when you quit your last job, those types of things. So there is a lot of security issues with using Facebook or LinkedIn or those types of things. So be careful, change your privacy settings so in theory only people that you trust have access to this information. When it comes to backing up your data, all right, there are lots of different options, all right? And the big question is, what should you back up and what shouldn't you back up? Now, to me, most importantly to back up is my data files, all right? These are the things that are very important to me, that if I lose them, I can never get them back. So that would be my pictures and my videos, music. That one might not be as important. I can probably get that back somehow, some way. But like the pictures that I've taken over my life of my daughter or those types of things, those are going to be things that I can probably not get back. So I want to make sure I have them backed up somewhere, so that way if my computer fails, I will be okay. So something to just take in mind. Now, another thing that you might want to back up is your program files. So things that allow your computer to run, settings for how you like your software set up, those types of things. And again, that comes down to you, what your backup strategy is. Are you using SaaS stuff or software system as a service, so that way everything's saved on the cloud anyway, so it doesn't matter if you lose your computer? But those types of things are the big questions here. Now, there are 3 overall different types of backups. So we have a full backup, and some pros of this are its potential for fast total recovery of data assets. It's simple to access the most recent backup version. All backups are contained in a single version, so one section, and at minimum time needed to restore business operations. The downsides: it requires the most storage space. It is the most bandwidth intensive because it's constantly updating every little detail, and it's relatively time consuming to complete the backup process. Next, we have incremental, and some pros of this are minimal time to complete backups, requires the least storage space and the least amount of bandwidth. Downtime is recovery time may be slower, requires a full backup in addition to incremental backups for a complete recovery. Recovery requires the piecing together of data from multiple backup sets, and small potential for incomplete data recovery if one or more backup sets has failed. So with a full backup every time, basically it's saying, okay, just back up this device, hard drive, computer, whatever it is, and it just basically copies everything that's on there. All right, and every time you create a backup, it does that. It goes, okay, copy it all again. Okay, copy it all again. Okay, copy it all again. And then when you need to restore from that backup, it basically says, well, we've been backing up this. Which version do you want to use? Do you want to use the version from today, yesterday, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever the magic date is, and you can say that one, and it will start backing up. The incremental, if you're doing an incremental every day, basically what it does is it goes through and it says, these are the things that have changed, and it creates only an image of those things that have changed. So it's only updating in little bits at a time, instead of doing the whole massive thing, which is a huge, huge, huge time saver. Or space saver, because instead of me saying, well, let me back up my whole entire hard drive that's 500 gigabytes, and I've only changed like 2 megabytes on it, but we're going to back up the whole thing anyway. Where incremental, it's like, okay, we're only going to back up the whole hard drive, but we've already backed up most of it. These 2 megs are what changed, so we'll update those 2 things. So a little bit of benefit to that incremental for space and data and things like that. Now, the last option is an image backup, and this ensures a complete snapshot of everything that makes your computer run: operating system, applications, and data. So each their own, and you really have to pick which type is best for you. I'd say for the average computer user, backing up your data files incrementally is probably what's most important. You should be able to get your software downloaded again somehow, some way. Hopefully you have all the install files for that saved somewhere, or you can download them again from the website. And maybe those install files are part of your data files that you back up. As I've said before, I have 2 hard drives in my one computer. One is my external USB, which is where all my important stuff gets backed up to. That's 1.5 terabytes. And then inside my computer, I've got probably almost 2 terabytes of hard drive space. I'm not backing up my entire Windows. All I'm doing is saying, back up these specific folders because these are the ones that matter. And that's what matters to me. So, if I lose my programs, whoop-de-freaking-do, I can go download those again, or, install them again from my install CDs, those types of things. Which one of those things that I do back up is those installers for some of those programs that may be harder for me to download again, or, things like that. I have one folder that's just called programs. And I make sure that any important program that I have to install that I've downloaded, that I keep in that folder just to make my life easier for when I do have to reinstall Windows. And normally it's not I have to reinstall Windows, it's I choose to reinstall Windows. I do that once every few years. I find that it makes the computer run better, you get rid of all sorts of bloatware, your hard drive space frees back up because you don't have all this crap on your computer. So I like to reinstall Windows every few years just for my benefit of making my computer feel like it's running better at least. So think about doing that one. Now, some environmental factors to consider when you are dealing with your computers. The big one is power surges. All right, and power surges can and will bring your computer down. All right, basically this is a spike of electricity that is not really a great thing for a computer. And some people think, well, I have the power switch on my power supply on my computer off. That'll protect it during a storm. And while that is a layer of protection, if you think about the gap that is on that power switch, which might be like a 1/4 inch if you're lucky, probably closer to 1/8 of an inch. Electricity, especially extremely high voltages, likes to jump. It goes from one point to another point. So you want to make sure that when you are using that type of that as your protection, that it is a large gap, as large as possible. If it's truly going to be a really bad storm at home, I will actually unplug my main computer from power because I want to make sure that it is not going to blow up my computer type of thing. I want to just be like, okay, my computer is protected because that's a big investment for you. It might be $1,000, $2,000 depending on the computer you have, and I have no need to want to replace that every year because a lightning storm came through and screwed up my house. So. Older faltering wiring can cause power surges, along with down power lines. Probably most likely lightning strikes is going to be the key, or is going to be what's going to cause it, but also malfunctions electric company substations. And for those who do not know what a substation is, it's how we take the thousands of volts that are coming in the main power lines, those big heavy-duty ones. A substation takes that power in, drops the voltage down, and redistributes it out to different areas and helps keep the load balanced and things like that. So it's pulling power from different areas to make sure everything stays happy. So if something happens to a power station, that can cause a power surge on your computer, on your house. And anything that is what's called solid-state devices is where you want to have protected using some sort of surge protector. Now, so there are two options. You have the little surge protectors that you plug all your devices into, or ideally you're plugging all your devices into. These are also sometimes called power strips. There is a difference between a power strip and a surge protector. A power strip, all it is outlets. That's it. There's nothing special about it. A surge protector has some extra hardware inside of it to keep those power surges from actually reaching the devices that are plugged in. So you want to be very careful about using a power strip versus a surge protector. Now, every 2 to 3 years, you should supposedly replace your surge protectors. The components in them do go bad, especially if you have lots of surges and things like that. So that is something that you want to think about. And any electronic device, as I said already, that has solid-state components, you do want to have surge protectors. So this includes TVs, computers, printers, stereos, cell phones, your networking equipment. All right, I actually had my networking equipment go bad because I didn't have it on a surge protector. At least I'm assuming this is why. After a big storm, we were out of town, came home, we didn't have internet, and I'm like, what's going on? Devices are connecting to Wi-Fi, that's working fine. Modem has blinky lights, that should be getting internet. Whatever happened, the modem and the router were not talking. That link, something happened there, and I just didn't have internet. So we had to go out and buy a new modem and whatnot, which kind of sucked, but that's the way the game goes. So now I have my modem and router plugged into a surge protector to keep that from happening again. So basically any electronic device nowadays should be plugged into some sort of surge protector. Now, if you don't feel like dealing with individual surge protectors throughout your whole house, you can do a whole house surge protector. This is a thing. You really should have that installed by a professional electrician to make sure that it is installed right and you don't electrocute yourself or shock yourself while you're installing it. I have no clue what the cost of one of those things would be, but in the world we live in with so many things being electronic nowadays, that might be a worthy investment to get installed in your house to help protect you from having your whole house go boom and not having anything working anymore. So that is just something that you should be thinking about. Now, how do we prevent and handle theft? All right, so the first thing is, with mobile devices, cell phones mainly here. Tablets are also high, but cell phones, almost everybody has a cell phone nowadays. And most of those are smartphones, right? You have an iPhone or an Android Go, or not Android Go, an Android device. It has all of your accounts linked on it. It syncs all of your web browsers with your phone and your computers and everything else. How can we keep those protected? And one of the first things is, you got to keep them from being stolen. All right. So be careful when you're using your phone. Make sure you don't leave it around. All right. I came downstairs in ATC, the tech building at HTC's campus one day, and there was just a phone just sitting on the chair, and I'm like, what the? Who would just leave their phone? And I almost went and picked it up right away, but I was like, I'm just going to leave it and kind of watch it for a few minutes. And a few minutes later, someone came out of the bathroom and picked their phone up, and it's like, you might not want to leave your phone there. They're like, what are you talking about? It's like, someone could have stolen it, those types of things. So you might not want to just leave it around. So be very careful with where you leave your phone. Now, I do understand that sometimes your phone falls out of your pocket, your purse, and things happen and kind of outside your control. So something to think about. Hopefully a good Samaritan comes by and finds your phone and gets it back to you. Not some jerk who's just going to keep it. So, keep the phone from being stolen. That's the first one. Now, how are we going to keep your data secure in case it is stolen? All right. Now, there are some options here. The biggest and most important one is for you to have some sort of password on your phone. Now, that could be your fingerprint. It could be a PIN code. It could be an actual password. It could be a pattern. Whatever option is that you go with, you should have a password on your phone, because this is not great protection, but it does keep the average Joe Schmo from picking your phone up at a bar and then calling people or accessing your bank account or whatever it is that you are doing, you can do on your phone. Because if you don't have a password on your phone, they have free access to all of your apps, so they can send emails, they can install things, they can call people, text people, those types of things. So a lot they can do. So the easiest, most thing you can do is have a screen password on your phone. All right. So most of the time now with fingerprints, it's a very easy thing to do to unlock your phone when you want to use it, and you only have to put the password in. All you have to do is tap your finger to the back, and you are good to go. The next step from that would be to encrypt your phone. And what encrypting your phone does is, basically, every time you power your phone on, you have to enter your password before anything on your phone is actually able to be used. Now, this is kind of a double-edged sword if you're hoping to get your phone back. Because if you've encrypted your phone and someone steals it and the first thing they do is turn it off, great, all of your data is secure. However, if they can't turn it back on, then there's no way for you to locate it later on down the line. So it is a little bit of a give and take here. It's the best option to protect your actual data on your phone. Because even with a lock screen on your phone, if someone plugs it into a computer, they may be able to access the data that's on the SD card, on the memory, on your flash memory on the phone, whatever it is. So, your phone is secure from them accessing your apps, but not necessarily secure from them accessing the actual data on your phone. Encryption will, however, keep them from accessing the data on your phone. Maybe not the SD card, depends on how you have encryption set up. So, something to think about. Now, another option for securing your data is if you lose your phone, most smartphones nowadays have a remote wipe option. So if you lose your phone, you can be like, you know what, I don't care I lost my phone, I just don't want anyone to get my data. There's an option where you can go in to log into a website. Android, it's called Device Manager. Just Google Android Device Manager, it'll pop up. And from there you can A, make your phone ring normally, B, lock your phone, like put a new password on it, C, put a message on the lock screen so you can be like, hey, if you find my phone, please contact me at, put your contact information there. Don't put your phone number because obviously, well, that's worthless because if they have your phone. Now maybe put your parents' phone number or something else. And then the last, worst case scenario there is you can remote erase. So that basically will delete all of your information off of that phone. So even if they can log in and whatnot, there's nothing left to log into. So that's the best option. Now, all of that does require that your phone does have an internet connection. So hopefully you have a data plan. Hopefully they haven't disabled the, put your phone in airplane mode, yada, 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 to keep you from doing that type of thing. And that does kind of go with the whole finding device if it's stolen, is the Find My iPhone feature or Android Device Manager. So both of those are great options to attempt to locate your phone if you just misplaced it, not if it was stolen. If it was stolen, contact the police and maybe do the Find My Phone feature with them so that way they can help, try to find it. Don't just go, being a police officer all by yourself and start just tracking your phone down and, walking up to some stranger in the street and going, you stole my phone. It's in your bag. I know it is because the software tells me it. That's just asking for bad news to happen. So use that Find My device if you've just misplaced your phone. Hopefully it's in your house. I know the Android version will show you a Google Map view with your phone is here, and it'll point you in the right direction, which is really kind of convenient for trying to locate your lost device. So that is all I have for this wonderful PowerPoint/video, because that's what this is. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and please watch those videos down in the description as you either go through the video, or hopefully you've watched them already. And if you haven't watched them already, I highly suggest it. There's a few that are absolutely hilarious. Have a good day.